Come on, guys. Come on, come on, come on. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. You've heard a lot of investors talk today about how, they can see the future and this is what you got to follow and everything like that. But I'm here to tell you, and you're going to hear a lot more about how, we've democratized investing and investments. What I'm going to tell you is that's already happened, right? We've already democratized the role of investor, and there are now millions more than there ever were in the world, right? Millions more. We've got the Binance Mafia, we've got the Coinbase Mafia coming, and we have all you retail folks who have figured it out and started to add value yourselves, so you know what you're talking about. These guys here are all investors too. They're successful because they've gone one step further than just writing checks, and they're here to share what really differentiates an investor from someone who writes checks. They're different things in this world. They're different things in this world. So first up, I'm going to talk with Shane. I've known Shane for a long time. I remember when Shane was trading coins and all that kind of stuff. But now we've got someone with us who has led this charge. And what I want to ask, so, even when it comes to these events, right? Even when it comes to events, just a few years ago, a VC, an investor, would have been every single time a panelist. Recently, as someone who programs events, I'm often putting VCs in the role of asking questions and leading conversations because there's so many of you guys now. How do you differentiate? How do you get ahead? Shane, let us hear what you do first to add value.
Absolutely. So I think to your point, in terms of differentiation, everyone here on this panel can probably speak to the fact that getting access to a cap table, to a project with compelling fundamentals is very, very competitive. So finding some point of differentiation or value add is really, really important. I think for us as a cryptocurrency exchange, we seek to be a little bit more tangible and hands-on with that value add. So the most obvious point of differentiation as an exchange is you can say, well, I'll facilitate the liquidity event. I'll list your token. You can go beyond that as an exchange by doing things like building out infrastructure, actually serving as a validator on the underlying ecosystem and participating in governments, offering staking or DeFi yield farming directly to end users once you list that token. So those are just some of the ways that we're trying to personally differentiate just so that we can get access to the cap table.
Excellent, Shane. And Beck, I'm going to follow up with you just because I'm very familiar with the Korean market and folks investing, folks trying to make their capital work is not a new thing. This whole aspect of North Americans and Europeans participating in early stage ventures and investing has been in Korea for a long time.
For sure.
You guys have a long track record of standing out in this field. How do you do it?
Yeah, we do it by being on the ground, hands-on. We incubated X Infinity and Terra. And how we did it was Terra, it was easy because they were in Korea. We were building together since 2017, scratch from the white paper. X's case was a little bit difficult because they were starting in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. And we realized that we got to really understand the market together. So we flew to Ho Chi Minh, build with them, spend weeks doing hackathon, building community. And eventually what we did was we actually brought them on board the Korea office in our Seoul office. And just started jamming together on esports, gaming. And we go further now, right? Our fund is Prop Capital. It's run by 100% founders' money. And now that we have grown in size, we bought 2 game studios in Korea. And that's now a 40-people team building 4 different games on top of our portfolios, such as Solana, Terra, Ethereum, and on. And now we can actually build with our founders rather than just saying that we are a hands-on investor. We're actually putting hands on their code, building entertainment, fun games on top of the protocols.
And that, I guess, is the extension of being a user and a product tester and all those things. Jasmine, in your case, it's Well, tell us a little bit about where you're based exactly, though. I would like to hear about your actual focus first.
Yeah, sure. I think that for us it will be like a bit different because we are actually a newly like established fund. We just started this year like in April, but we actually invested quite aggressively. We have done 23 deals, like deployed 20 million like US dollar already. And for this fund, I think it's quite different because I've been also thinking like what is the unique selling point like to our portfolios, right? Because after all, you talk with like all the time with like portfolios or investments, potential investments, and they always ask you what is your potential value add, and it's really like the topic. I mean, we have been asked so many times because we are fund one. So our focus at the moment is finance related because we are very well connected with institutional money, and also like with Web 3.0, especially how the DAO is like infrastructure and so on. And the third point we are looking at is like a metaverse, so like NFT and GameFi and so on. So I think because previously I was also with like a crypto fund, crypto VC, so I think when I started to fund this new capital, I wanted to think a little bit forward. So how like the institutional gonna act when they started to have like a foot in crypto, and that is exactly where we stand.
And in your case, Ian, we've got tremendous amount of projects where you're based. Do you get an advantage from a geographical location, or how do you pursue standing out in this environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll start by kind of saying how we I think there's a way you contribute to the community, and then there's a way that you contribute to portfolio companies specifically. When I talk about the contributing community, we try to be very active, right? So Solana Demo Day was co-hosted by Sina Global, for example. Well, we try to engage with institutions and educate them around crypto economy. And generally, we've gained the reputation of people who are community-first investors who like to do cool shit with cool people. And basically, portcos want to be part of that too. When we look at portfolio companies and how we help them, a lot of people do want us on their cap table for the geographic support, right? So we're very strong in the Asian region. Even most recently, we just made a lot of hires in the India region as well. So investors or portfolio companies know that if we're on your cap table, we're going to be able to help you in idiosyncratic yet very important regions to crypto. And it does provide us a tremendous advantage in kind of finding and sourcing the deals because we have roots in these, we'll say, underserved geographies sometimes. We're embedded in these communities where we go to the AMAs, we sponsor the AMAs, we go to small meetup events. So yeah, absolutely.
And so I want to follow up on that with you for a second, Ian, because I remember I invited one of the original, let's say, crypto funds in 2017 to talk in New York City. Linda G, who everyone knows today as one of the pioneers of this whole thing, one of those Coinbase Mafia folks. And she told me in 2017 her alpha trick was to head to all the meetups and all the different places that the early crypto community were joining. But in this case, we haven't had that advantage in a few years. How did you make do without access along that line? And we're going to talk about that more in WAGMI. But in this case, how did you make do without those self-curated communities that you could just go to and listen for 2 seconds and know that's good, that's bad?
So I would say even if we aren't physically at some of these meetups, these are overlapping relationship circles in some of these geographies. So even not going to physical meetups sometimes, you still kind of have these relationship circles deep in some of these very hard to reach geographies. I would say the other thing that we just focus on like more than anything, and we guide all of our decisions like this, are we a long-term high trust investor? To me, that's the alpha drop here. Just your reputation is worth everything in this industry. Always be growing the pie. And if you're ever not growing the pie or you're not approaching it in a long-term high trust way, then I don't think it's being done in the right way. So those have been our guiding principles.
So, and this to Shane, talking about growing the pie. When you were talking about the liquidity feature of the exchange to be able to add that piece of liquidity as an incentive or an enticement to get the cap tables, A16Z last year came out with that amazing blog post, which I recommend to everyone who's doing anything in this industry to read. Social Media Strikes Back or Social Strikes Back. It was about a year ago right now. And what they said was, and you're starting to see it with Coinbase getting into the content creation game, and a lot of these exchanges getting into it. So growing the pie, is there a world where you see that all exchanges really have to start becoming media companies too in order to be that long-term assistance? Is there a strategy that you think is now you can't get around, that media has to be part of it, and messaging and broadcasting of that message?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're already starting to see that largely, is that centralized exchanges or those at the helm of centralized exchanges are perceived as the subject matter leaders in the space. I mean, just look how big SBF has gotten in the space and the sort of voice that he carries. And becoming more than an exchange, just a liquidity venue, is nothing new to centralized exchanges. They're not just the matching engine anymore. They're the custodian, the broker-dealer, the clearing agency as well, also the issuance, and now investors as well. So to become part of the media conversation, to actually generate content, to then distribute to the established millions of users, I think is an organic next step. We'll see who actually pioneers that the best. I think that there are a couple of candidates amongst the centralized exchange players, but yeah, I think it's a great question and probably an organic piece of evolution in the space.
And I want to continue along that line of media and content with BIC, simply because Korean language is quite small, probably the smallest of the major players in the industry, let's say, right? So I count Korea as a major player with the United States and with the big places. But of course, the language, there isn't a lot of speakers in the world. What do you do to try and get those messages across? Is it keeping it in the Korean language, or do you have a wider scope of how to access that content layer that VCs are more and more interested in? Or do you just speak a technical language and that works for you?
Yeah. That's an interesting challenge, but we do it through our portfolios. Our portfolios are about 80% global, so naturally our platform has to be global rather than being limited to Korean language and the region. But we do support a lot of our founders with the Asian market and global market in the reach and go-to-market. And right now we're actually expanding our office to Singapore, Philippines, and we also have office in Bangalore, India. And we've been building research team there. This is all in effort to build both the media, but also the local presence, so that we can really cultivate the founders down the line. Because I feel that many of the Asian funds sell Asia, that we will help you go to Asia. But what you should be really doing is really cultivating the next generation founders, so that there's more talent coming from that region, rather than helping DeFi startups or NFT startups get to Asia. But it's really about growing within that ecosystem and building the platform globally coming from that region.
So that means like tapping into the entrepreneurship of Koreans who've got all these great ideas and want to get them to market.
Right.
Yeah. Now, following up on the getting to market piece, and this is for you, Jasmine. So we look at these blockchains, right? And we see a roadmap, let's say, of features that come from an ecosystem and built on top of the actual network. And that's always a great sign when we see, let's call it product market fit. You see people building themselves, going off and doing stuff. And that's one of the great things about the open source aspect, I would say, is that people can come at it without permission and start developing. And when you see it, it's almost like an indication that it's working. So when you look at that, when you look at the ecosystem, do you think of it as, well, okay, Solana's missing this piece to get feature parity with, let's say, Ethereum. That's an opportunity. Do you look at it in those terms? Do you have to know the ecosystem related to every chain to see if people are using it, building on it, whether that's viable, and then to see if there's holes in that, let's say, creative output? Is that a way you look at it?
I think for every new layer ones, it's always have a stage where at the very start it tend to be a lot of forked projects, right? I mean, you see a lot of projects they are doing similar stuff already on Ethereum maybe a few years ago. But I think during this event we also saw some new business models and so on. That is exactly what we want to see for this vibrant prosperous ecosystem. But I think that is definitely a way for us to look for the next opportunities, but we definitely also have our own research and also product team to see what is missing, what can be possibly due on Solana, because after all different layer ones have their own different strengths, so we can definitely identify that and then try to invest in them.
And is there a range of pivot that would be acceptable to the project based on your advice? Do you say, oh, that's too much of a pivot, even though you think a team might be perfect for some change? You know, I'm talking about long-term adding value. If you have to come in with someone you're already working with and get them to change slightly because you believe if they just see it from this way, they'll get that perspective. Is that a way you would look at it?
Definitely, because we also look at like stages, like between like C stage, like to B, like around like a project. And definitely, I agree with Yan just mentioned, like it's important to be like a long-term investors. So we do our fund is like a 10 years, like a fund life. So we definitely have the patience and time, and also be able to support like the portfolios to really change or modify like during their life cycle.
And now for you, Ian, on that change and modification piece, right? So continuing on the idea of change, modification, you know, how do you go in and say, you know, if you go this way, it's going to be better? Is there a range for you too of acceptable pivot from what they might have started, and you tying their product, ideas, talents, skills? It's kind of like a talent stack question when you're looking at some of these folks. You see what they've got and you say, if you focus on this piece of that stack, you're going to get there.
We do. So we have 3 product managers, and including myself at one time, on staff. And we absolutely love doing whiteboard sessions with a protocol or project. Look, take us through the research. Take us through, you know, who your customer is. OK, let's build that up to what is the insight here. OK, now you're going from your insight to let's ideate around that. Let's run a design thinking workshop and really get into this. And then from there, let's rapidly prototype something new, maybe, or even just see how a design on this would look. So absolutely, it's a wide range. You got to be really flexible in the crypto ecosystem. And just because a project comes with you with one idea, they're relying on you to help them find that product market fit. One thing that everyone on the stage has an advantage of over a portfolio company is that we are very broad. We get to see the opportunities across chains, across different verticals, and things like this. And in a potential investment or a portfolio company is a portfolio company because they are narrower and they are deeper. So we complement them by essentially helping them see opportunities that are outside of their kind of blinded zone, if you will. So we've run a couple product management workshops in the last 2 weeks. We just get everyone on a Miro board and we start rapping. It's actually the best part of my week. The legal stuff is the worst.
So you would say, like, you're taking, let's say, a typical corporate vertical piece of the stack, product management, and you're saying as a VC, we can push product management as a piece of the stack into that. We can offer that as an addition.
Yeah, I'm essentially saying that the product management mindset is a little bit different. And sometimes when you have, for example, 2 technical founders in a project, they don't have this experience on staff. So they rely on you to bootstrap that experience at the beginning. Until maybe it makes sense for them to hire their own product manager or whatever their engineering team setup and product setup is. But absolutely, we have the skills on staff, so we contribute those skills where we can.
So, and I'll go with you, Beck. We think of talent stacks as, you know, you're good at public speaking, you're a good writer, you have a degree in this subject. When you look at founders or products, do you follow a similar matrix of I've got a set of skills, you know, whether it's familiarity with this language or not? Is there something that sticks out to you that says these combination of talents are what I want to invest in, irrespective of the products?
I think what we look at right now is really around how can this founder turn capital power into talent and into execution. In crypto, I think there's a lot of over-premises, and to be honest, around the globe, not that many people total have raised more than maybe 10 million. Mm-hmm. But in crypto, that's quite common, and not many have experienced how to turn that capital into work in a very effective and fast manner, so that you can use that capital as a result to deliver value to the market. And we see sometimes that some of the founders say we have a long runway because we raised this much. But I think in crypto, what's really important is raising, growing the pie fast, and managing treasury very effectively, so that you can cover those talent stack fast, so that you are working on these at a scale rather than going one by one. And that's something that we really look at when we talk with founders. Is this a person that can turn that into work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never thought of that different frame, and that is that Runway was everything in the last iteration of VC and investment, and it seems like in crypto, Runway kind of isn't as important in a sense because there's so many kicks at the can, right? You get so many chances there. Along the lines, and this will be the last question because we're almost out of time, for you, Shane, along those lines of kicks at the can and chances to make it work, right? How do you approach that from it's done, or I can give you the confidence to let you go further because I believe in you, and we'll try this again this way? What's the formula there?
Yeah, absolutely. For us as an exchange, since when we list an asset, and as I mentioned, that's part of our differentiation, we're often perceived as the investment advisor, even though we are not. I would say that never ends for us. So it's a relentless pursuit to always make sure that those projects that we've listed, that we're supporting, are doing everything in their power to actually build truly compelling fundamentals. I think where we provide immense value and where we're constantly urging the projects is to try to focus on grassroots mobilization, get retail involved. I think that's sort of the next iteration here, is that even though a project may have had success from a VC perspective and have lots of institutional support, at the end of the day, if the retail end user isn't actually engaged in the underlying protocol, it's really not what we can consider compelling. So I would say, again, just more of a relentless pursuit, always trying to provide strategic value in any way possible, especially with regards to infrastructure build out to support the projects.
Great. Everyone, thanks to our great panel. We're running out of time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.